Hi, welcome to my guitar tutorial talking about 4 different improvising strategies. So this is just a simple track, E to A, and then I'm adding in the sus4 there. So what I'm doing in this track is I'm just using mostly just E minor pentatonic, open position. And you'll notice I'm mostly stuck on the top 3 or 4 strings. So I use that position, and then I also use this position, B, D, E, G, A, B. Great. And then I did also this position here, E, G, A, B, D, E. Okay, so then let's see, some of the ideas I use, I kind of did this bend here. That bend there, I did a lot with this bend here. So bending the A up to B or B flat. And then I did a little bit with this bend here, A up to B or B flat. So you can just use your ear and your instincts to figure that one out. Then I also did D up to E slide, and then adding in the open E. And then I also did the same thing here, A up to B. That one, and then let's see, and then up here I did the bend here, A to B. So there you don't have to bend up a full step, you can bend up a half step. Sounds more bluesy. And then I also did the A up to B. Kind of sat on that a little bit. You can also do this like where you bend and then you catch that D, or maybe in the ending improvisation I'll do that one. And then last but not least, I did this bend here, where you're just kind of taking, kind of smearing those notes together. That's a fun one to play. All right, so then I guess to end off this section, I'll just improvise a little bit more out of those E minor pentatonic patterns. And then in the next section, I'll talk a little bit about major pentatonic. Hi, welcome to my part 2 here of this tutorial. So in this one, I'm using a major pentatonic for all the chords. So the G chord to the D chord to the A chord. So the first idea is just G major pentatonic, D, E, and then A, D major, A, B, D, E, F sharp, and then A major, E, F sharp, A, B, C sharp. And I'm using some different devices here, just basic either slides or bends up to the third, and then up to the third. So for the G chord, or a bend, and then to the D for the D, and then for the A. Okay, so those are, and then I also do these kind of repeated licks. So you bar here and then hammer here, and then here, and then here. And I think I might have done this lick where you bend here, and then you add the pinky on the E note there. All right, so those are most of the licks I did there. So then I also did the same thing here, G, A, B, D, E. So you have this. So you bend up to there, up to B, add the D note, and then you do sort of similar thing here, bend the E up to F sharp, add the A. Okay, now here, rather than bending, what I did here is I do a slide A, C sharp, and then I just do the sixth intervals, D, B, chromatic to E, C sharp. And I think what I did the second or third time I went, and I think I just went up to that one there. So G1, and then the D, and I think I might have on the A one. So those are kind of the basic ideas. Just playing your major pentatonic, D, and then here. Okay, and then here. D. I think I might have done that one at a time. Or these 6 intervals. You can also maybe go up to there. Okay. All right, I'll just end off again with an improvisation using those two ideas. So stay tuned for next section will be Mixolydian strategies. Hi, welcome to the part 3 of my improvising 4 different ways to improvise. So this is going to be primarily Mixolydian. So I started off with a minor pentatonic and then some major pentatonic, and this is just Mixolydian. So I'll briefly talk about what I just played there. I'm not going to remember every single thing I did. So the first thing was just to play out of this 9th position. So this is E Mixolydian. This is basically A major. So I'll just play through that the scale briefly. E D C sharp, B A G sharp, F sharp E, D C sharp B, A G sharp F sharp, E D C sharp. You'll notice in a lot of these improvising videos, I don't go really low on the fretboard. I'm mostly sticking with the top 4 strings. Okay, and then here I went to 4th position here, G sharp A B, C sharp D E, F sharp G sharp A, B C sharp D, E F sharp, and then G sharp A B. Okay, so all I'm essentially doing here is just trying to create, melodies off of this progression, the progression E, A, D, A. So mostly kind of landing on the roots and fifths of the key. So the E, and then on the B, or maybe on the third of the E chord. And then doing some kind of typical bends that would come out of, major pentatonic, that F sharp up to G, which I did in my previous video. And then I also did the, this one here, bending the 6th up to the 7th. And then I also did this F sharp up to G sharp. All right, so that's kind of the basic idea there. Then the second example, I was playing 3-note per string scales, and I just happened to stumble across this. I think this is a Green Day riff from one of their... All right, so I didn't really plan this. I just kind of stumbled upon this. E, A, D, A. So E, A, D, and then you can just kind of embellish that riff. Or each 2. And so on. And then I just, from there, I'm just using the 3-note per string scale of A major, E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A. And I think I also went up to that B note because that's the 5th of the key, so I thought that was a good one. And once again, I'm not really putting a lot of thought into this. I'm just trying to listen to the progression and just trying to come up with little riffs that I think sound good against the chords. And then I also went to this other A major 3-note per string scale, very typical A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D sharp, B, C sharp, D. And you'll notice when I first got in, right, so it's an A major scale, but the riff is E, A, D. I'm kind of playing off of that E note. And I think I also, at one point, did like these half-step bends. Right. So, like I said, once again, just using my instincts and my intuition just to try to make up something that I think sounds good in this situation. Obviously, if I wanted to, sit down and create a more standardized riff, I could have done that, but I decided in this example not to do that. All right, so that's the 3-note per string, and then the last thing I did was I was just playing up and down on a single string. I've done a lot of videos like this. So once again, I'm in the key of A, but I'm playing off the E and the B strings. That's the root and 5th of this particular riff, like is kind of E Mixolydian. So I'll just say the notes up to the 12th fret: E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D, E. So you have that flat at 7th. Right, and then I think I went up to probably up to about the B there during the improv. Okay, and then on the second string, once again, key, E Mixolydian, the context, key of A notes B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, and then C sharp, D. Right, so once again, I'm just trying to create some interesting melodies. So there's that flat 7 bend, and then the bend up to the major third. I think I did the same thing here. So that was one thing, and then I might have done this bend here, E up to F sharp up to G. I kind of like that sound where you go. So whole step bend here on F sharp, half step bend on C sharp. So I like that sound. And then I also did some pedal tone. All right, once again, there's no rhyme or reason to how I'm doing that. I'm just kind of listening to the riffs and just trying to make it sound what I think works good. And then using that either E or B is very, very solid in that progression. Okay, so that's part 3. So I think what I'll do is I'll just end off with a little bit of improvisation, and I'm just gonna let it kind of flow naturally, whatever seems like it wants to come out. So I might do some of the cage positions. I might do some 3 upper string, and I might do some up and down on one string. Okay, so there'll be one more part to this. I'll be working with some triads. Okay, a little improvisation here. Hi, welcome to part 4 of my tutorial talking about different ways of improvising. So in this section, I'm just using a original backing track, G, D, A, and E. And I'm just using two different strategies. The one is using triads on 4, 3, 2. And then, so this is going to be a G triad, D triad, A triad, and an E triad. And I'm just adding in the notes from the pentatonic, D, E, G, A. All right, so that was the first example, then D. So these would basically be coming from the major pentatonic. And then for the A chord, F sharp and B. And then for the E, adding the C sharp and the F sharp. That was the first example. And then the second example, I was just adding in the sus4 of each of the chords. C, a sus4 of D, and then a sus4 of A, and then the sus4 of E. Okay, and then in the subsequent examples, I was just kind of freely adding in whatever notes I felt like adding. So that was the one example. And the other one was I was taking triads on the top of 3 strings. So the G chord, D chord, A chord, and then the E chord. So sometimes I was holding the chords when I thought it sounded good, and sometimes I was arpeggiating them. So for the G chord, and then I was adding in the A here over 9, 6. I don't think I didn't add in the sus4s here. Okay, then. Right, I think I was just doing something very simple like that, just adding sus4 there, and then just adding the 6 there from the A. And then on these forms, I was just doing kind of those kind of Hendrix double stop. So for the G, adding in the 9 and the 6, and then here just arpeggio on the D chord, and then here A, I'm just adding in the 6th of the chord, and then here holding the chord and adding in the 9 and the 6. So those are the two basic strategies. Okay, so hopefully you've enjoyed all these different ways of improvising: minor pentatonic, major pentatonic, Mixolydian, and now the triad. So I'll end off today and the whole video with just some basic improvisation using these simple techniques with the triads. Okay, thanks for listening and watching.